How to stop taking things personally. One of the most common challenges that you will face in life that highly affects the mental state, the kind of relationships that you will have, and even your perception on life, is the assumption of things. This is one of the commonest challenges. It is normal that we relate the words and actions of others within our own concerns or past life events, which makes us feel it was personally done to us, although there was no intention of hurting us. This is especially the case even when there was no intention of causing us trouble in the first place. It might well be to the point of learning how to deal with situations in a different manner and to obtain understanding in the elements that contribute to this inclination in order to break the habit of internalizing events that occur outside of you. In the same manner, learning how to better deal with situations can also break the habit of internalizing events. Among the most basic reasons why individuals take things to heart is because of their ego. One of the reasons why people decided to take things to heart in the first place. A statement made by another individual could be interpreted as some kind of criticism and could provoke feelings of inadequacy or fear of evaluation. The way in which others view us can be a reflection of who we think we are, and even such feelings can occur when a person speaks to another individual in such a way that the other person perceives the words as being critical of himself. Have you ever been in a position where someone said something lightly, and afterward, you're lying awake at night for hours or days, speculating on what was said, though the person involved rarely meant it to be said to you as an attack or to harm you in any way? Have you ever had this come your way? What occurs if the answer is yes? In such a context, what type of thoughts did the subject matter draw out of you? Do you feel that there must have been something in that statement that made it resonate with you? In cases of certain situations, the solution lies in your concerns rather than the motive of the other person. There is yet another factor to consider here, and that is how we as humans perceive the action of others. Nonetheless, although most of the time, words and acts of other people will often be a reflection of what happens in their lives, we tend to think that other people's actions are directed at us. This is notwithstanding a tendency to think that other people are trying to talk to us. Remember the last time somebody treated you in a manner that was not just impolite, but insulting as well. Have you quickly assumed it had to be because of something you might have done, without going much farther in your investigation? It is of the utmost importance to look closely at the possibility that their rude attitude has absolutely nothing to do with you. Keeping this in mind is something that should be done. They probably just had a bad day, or just something going on in their personal life at that moment. To what degree does this have the ability to change the way you think about things? Now that you are aware of this, it will seem much easier to put the focus away from taking everything on face value and quit doing so, because that understanding will grant you the power of perspective taking. Practice is indeed the best course to facilitate self-awareness. Self-awareness is a way to overcome the habit of taking things personally, and self-awareness can be constructed. This is done in a variety of ways. One way in particular being through an understanding of emotive responses you find yourself having, and by asking yourself why certain phrases or actions push your buttons at a particular moment. However, if you find yourself offended by another person's statements, do not respond in a manner that becomes out of control, but instead, take time to stop and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Is it possible for you to find out what part of my body is under attack? These are poignant situations, almost always attaching more profound problems that are inside us. For example, past experiences of rejection, criticisms, or the pain of inadequacy that we haven't dealt with. Most of the time, that's exactly the situation. You may realize that if you are able to trace the triggers, you will be able to begin responding with a greater degree of mindfulness, rather than letting your emotions run the show. The percentage of time you take a moment to fully think about what emotional responses you're feeling before you do is the percentage you take. If you were to do this more frequently, what changes do you think would come to be in the way in which you interact with other people? And empathy is a big piece that serves as a kind of influence over the way you perceive other people's actions from your own perspective. If you can just take 1 minute to place yourself in someone else's shoes for a moment and really start to think about what that other person might be experiencing, you should be able to see that it could make an impact on how much a comment from another individual affects you as an individual. Just for a minute, imagine that you are this coworker who needs to scream at you in the middle of a meeting. While, of course, your instinctive reaction might be to feel offended or injured, what would you do if you were to learn they were under tremendous pressure due to a personal situation you were working through? Do you think you would feel about the situation you are in any differently were you in a position of knowing this information? Could you stand as a person showing more ability to have compassion and forgive based on what you are facing now? It should be that the ability to build detachment would be well utilized in instances such as these where it would be needed. Accept the reality that you do not have any control over the thoughts, feelings, or actions of others. This is the most essential part of the process of detaching with other people. On the other hand, detachment does not mean you become cold or uninterested in the matter. Have you ever felt like being pulled down whenever you try to control what others think? For a minute, imagine that you did not need everyone to accept you, and that you trusted that feedback given to other people is not something you have to put up with. When you make it a practice to emotionally distance yourself from people who are in your immediate area, you offer yourself the opportunity to be less affected by the ups and downs of others' moods or judgments. And it is in this way that you offer yourself the chance of being less affected by other people's moods or judgments. In other words, there may be some truth to it, that it starts with the need for control, or for sure things, as the urge to take things personally with specific circumstances really begins. It might just be that when someone's behavior does not go in line with what you expect to see, or comes across as severe, it may present the impression that you are losing control of the scenario, or that things are not happening the way you would have thought them to be. It can indeed prove to be a very frustrating experience. Maybe this is going to be a really frustrating experience. How often do you wish that you could control how others perceive you or how they react to a given situation? Assuming you relinquish your need to control and recognize that what other people think and do is truly out of your hands, what sorts of consequences would you have in store for yourself from this action? In relation to the value of self-compassion, there is one last issue to consider. Now, sometimes when you treat yourself with kindness and feel safe in the value that you bring to the world, it becomes much harder for the words or actions of others to make you uncomfortable. Do you ever discover on the days that you are feeling confident that you are less likely to take offense to things that happen to you? Have you ever made that discovery? This is something that you have learned with the help of your own personal experience. Even if you are already feeling insecure, a passing remark from someone might seem to you like a huge blow. What might you do in the course of your own life to increase the self-compassion you practice? Where would you like to see some improvement in inner security? How is that to be accomplished? Helpful behaviors or ways of thinking? Learning how to let things not affect one is a self-cleansing process. It involves self-reflection, sensitivity, and a willingness to let go of the need for external validation. This remains a continuous process. In the end, learning how to stop taking things personally is actually a continuous process. You need to become more conscious of the ways in which you feel and the possible drivers for others' behaviors in order to have a stronger mind. Then, that is what you need for developing a stronger mentality. That's what you should do if you are to develop a more resilient mindset. If you could take things less personally, how might that change the relationships you are involved with at the time? How much emotional energy might you save if you didn't internalize the behaviors of other people? How much emotional energy can people store? If you pay some attention to these questions, you may get better emotional freedom, as well as make your interaction with other people more harmonious. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.